Give an illustration this morning that's going to help somebody. I want to give an illustration. I used to run track. And I remember I'm talking about give me my focus back. You know, Elder Guilford, come help me out. I used to run track. This is our baton this morning. And when I used to run track, I want you to understand something about track. Elder Guilford, if you could stand down there with the baton. I'm talking about focus, everybody. Remember, I'm talking about give me my focus back. And when I used to run track, I used to run the third leg of the 400-meter relay. And when you were preparing, I'm talking about planning, organizing, beginning to execute and getting ready to do what you got to do. I used to run the third leg, and when we would prepare for the race, there was a preparation time. Let me just say, look at somebody and say, you got to prepare. You got to prepare. You see, you got to prepare for what's coming down the road. We would sit down there, and what I would do when we were getting ready for the race to start, I would sit down and I would mark out. It would be used about 10 or 12 steps that we would sit there and mark out on the track. And when I would mark out those 12 steps, I would put my piece of tape down on the ground on the track, and I would just sit it there, and I would just look at that a few steps back, and then I would go to my position where I was getting ready to run so that we could make a real clear exchange. And one thing I did is that when everybody was in the set position, let me tell you something, you can't get set when it's your time to run. You got to get set before the gun goes off. You got to be ready to run when everybody's down in the ready position. The sprinters are in the blocks and they're ready to take off. That means even before the baton gets to you, you got to be ready. Look at somebody and say, get ready. You've got to get ready before the gun goes off. And so before the gun went off, when I looked over and saw my partner, he was already down in the blocks ready to jump out and go to running. I would already be in my ready position, and the only thing I would do is I would look up. Remember, I'm talking about focus. My focus wasn't on anywhere else but on that white piece of tape. I would look down, and when my runner began to run, Elder Gifford would start to run, I would just be looking at that tape. When he hit that spot, I would get up and begin to run. I would begin to run, and I wouldn't look back. And as he got closer, he would say something. I would begin to run because I recognized, let me tell you something, in the race there were runners all around. There were at least 6 to 8 lanes of runners, but my focus was not on the other runners. It was on the white piece of tape because I had a connection to make at the right time and at the right place that would make all the difference for the race. I want you to understand, but we train to get there. Let me just show you how we train. We could train for the connection because if the baton drops, I don't care if you're leading the race, you're disqualified. And so when practice, we would just sit there pumping our arms and we would train. Oh, come on. Look at somebody and say practice. You got to practice. You got to practice because the race is already, the gun has already been shot. And I want to tell somebody today that the race is almost finished, but you've got to recognize that the only way I'm going to make the connection is I've got to stay focused. Look at somebody and say, give me back my focus. I need my focus back. I need to narrow down my scope. I need to get tunnel vision. That's why sports athletes say that even though the crowd is roaring and even though everything around them is loud, they have an ability to have tunnel vision when they need it. That means they shut out the distractions. I would be on the track, distractions all around me, and the only thing I could hear was the clicking of the heels of my teammate. I shut everything out because I understood that the race had to be run. Look at somebody and just nudge them and say, run your race. Run your race. You got to run your race. You can't get distracted by everybody around you. I've seen teams leading with the exchange and lose the race in the end because somebody on the team lost focus. They lost focus, and I would hear the clinging of the baton, and I knew that if I just stayed in my lane and ran my own race, I would soon be the victor. You got to understand that the Bible says where there is no vision, the people perish. You got to have some vision and get you some focus. What I like about this story is how it ends. Thank you, Tim. It says, I can almost imagine The prodigal son had gotten the stick. He was running. He was running. He was saying, you know what? You see, when you're running, you got to keep a focus in mind too. What are you running for? Who are you running for? Are you running for yourself or are you running for Christ? I can almost imagine the prodigal son had a focus. If I can just get home. I'm hungry right now. But my father's servants have bread enough to spare. I'm tired right now. I should give it up. But if I just run on a little longer, I believe he says, you know, I'm going back home. I don't even want to be called a son. I just want to be called a servant. What I love about the Bible, it says that when he was a great way off, in mid-stride, his father was like this. Come on, son. Keep on running. You see, his son was that third leg like me, but you see, the third leg's not the end of the race. You got to credit to what they call in track the anchor man. You see, the anchor man is usually the fastest person on the track. They're usually the fastest person on the field. And when you get it to the anchor man, you just know. You see, sometimes I've gotten the baton to the anchor man and he wasn't in the lead. Sometimes I've gotten the baton to the last guy and we were tied for the race. But I said, if I could just get it into his hands, I know what he can do. He can beat everybody on the track. He runs a 10 flat 100. If I could just get it into his hand, nobody can stop him. His dad, son, I see you coming. His dad had to keep coming. Somebody's right now, you're in a situation where you got to keep coming. You've got the baton. Yes, it looks bad. Yes, it looks ugly. Yes, you're in a famine, but keep on running. You got one more leg to go. If you can get it into his hand, he will take it home. What I like about the anchor man, Jesus, he never misses a connection. He never drops the baton. He always gets it across the finish line. Because he has the greatest focus known to man. Where in your life do you need to focus? Where in your life do you need to plan, organize, execute?